English as a second language high school teachers in Vietnam often use a game-based student response system, a GSRS, within their lessons to enhance student engagement. For example, they can use Kahoot and quizzes. These are the two most used GSRSs in Vietnamese high school. These GSRSs, where the lesson is temporarily a game show, teachers are hosts and the students are contenders, are based on algorithms built on student response systems, which sometimes are biased. Algorithmic biases can lead to unfair treatment. Even if the SRSs were developed in the 60s as a solution to make large classes more interactive, and are engaging in the sense that they often depict gamified multiple choice questions, there is little research to exploit the algorithmic biases within their dynamics. English as a second language teachers in Vietnam usually use GSRSs to ease and beautify their teaching procedures or to help maintain classroom management, as public school here are usually very large with circa 50 students per class. This video will expose the types of algorithmic biases, for example, content bias, cultural bias, and systemic bias of these two GSRSs, Kahoot and quizzes, which are the most used within a Vietnamese high school ESL lesson. This video will also try and expose the effects that these biases can have on students' well-being while giving possible solutions for each of these presented. Next. Algorithms are already part of decision making in our societies. And even if they are built to solve specific computing problems, as they can give us exact information we are looking for, they can carry human-generated biases and can contribute towards a kind of a hidden curriculum or an algorithmic culture that is seen as the primary educational way through which social inequalities are reproduced. This algorithmic culture hides how companies shape cultural and systemic values using algorithms while presenting them as a choice for audiences, as we will see in this video during the systemic biases chapter. This algorithmic culture also helps spread and sustain algorithmic biases. While the algorithms remain unseen because of some commercial interests, they make use of transferred biases learned from biased data in order to further promote wrong societal beliefs, such as the idea that women's main role is to be carriers, or that black people defendants are more likely to reoffend. Scholars have tried to understand where these biases are coming from, with some studies showing that the data is biased because people are biased. Other studies have shown that this could be caused by underlying factors, such as the lack of diversity in the development teams or the opacity of algorithmic systems. Further on, we will discuss about content biases in GSRSs. It would be quite complicated to give a singular definition of what bias is, but they seem to be present in many facets of our societies. Biases are seen as learned embeddings of meaning that exist along race and gender lines. Algorithmic biases are automated processes that assist people in decision making but produce discriminatory results with regards to certain individuals or groups without a justified reason for such unequal impact. Algorithmic biases are also the result of incomplete and poorly selected input data. Content biases refer to the fact that some GSRSs, such as Kahoot, depict user generated content which can be biased with regards to its quality or cultural appropriateness or even inclusivity. An example of such a content bias is shown in Figure 1, which depicts a Kahoot game designed by a teacher and accessible to everyone on the platform. The game itself assesses students' general knowledge and has 54 questions in total. The bias here is related to how this teacher um, knew to associate each question with the picture that comes with it. For example, the two soldiers and a graffiti wall. And the fact that there could have been better associations that would have better helped the students understand complex grammar features. Another GSRS where we can see content bias is quizzes. This game-based platform is similar to Kahoot, but the main difference is that players can see the questions on their own devices and can answer at their own pace. Content biases here refer to language interference, as in many instances, the game have random questions in the main tongue of the ESL teacher who created them. And we can see this in Figure 2. Other content biases, as mentioned by students and teachers, are much more common and point to hard to read questions and answers or getting the difficulty level of these questions and answers right. For example, an ESL teacher who didn't have the time to design their own Kahoot game would search for ready-to-go Kahoots within the GSRS in-game open library. Even if this could be seen as a positive sign, because it saves teachers time, for example, in many instances, the games are biased, whether because of the font size. For example, there are too small letters and students can't see them well on the board, even when projected, or because of some grammar-related issues, like such as typos or wrong answers. One recommendation here would be to create short, concise questions when possible. If necessary, complex questions and answers should be projected on the board, or ESL teachers could prepare a printout, even A3 printout, to show the students each question in part as the game evolves. Cultural biases are embedded in technology, and this fact may affect learners from diverse backgrounds because of their influence or on either the developers or the acquired data. Due to the implementation of technology nowadays, cultural stereotypes, cultural biases propagate in widespread use. In figure 1, we can see how the designer, here the teacher, integrated societal values and meanings. Therefore, their subjective views are in the lesson dynamics. For example, the question for the past simple negative tense exercise is associated with a graffiti wall, and thus leading us to believe that graffiti has a negative meaning, and thus encapsulating a subjective vision over this matter. Moreover, the interrogative form is associated with two North Korean soldiers, which could have political meanings and hidden messages. I personally find cultural biases much more dangerous than content ones, just because these represent the real hidden curriculum and the tacit elements encoded and enacted in our values and views. A multiculturalist approach within ESL training workshops for debutant teachers, where the goal is to promote equity by producing a culturally sustaining pedagogy, would most probably make educators aware of the importance of cultural appropriateness, with the aim of both producing culturally appropriate teaching materials and making ESL teachers aware of the existence of these said cultural biases when using GSRSs such as Kahoot. Systemic biases are ubiquitous in mainstream society and often referred to non-white and non-Western groups as marginalized, fetishized, or spoken for on a systemic level. They tend to target specific racial groups or societal minorities. They are referred to as historical, societal, and institutional biases. An example of systemic bias could be the fact that employers use hiring algorithms that do not go beyond university credentials, as these are seen as pertinent information when it comes to decision making and whether a candidate is suitable for the job they applied for. Systemic biases in GSRSs and their application in ESL instruction and ESL education in general refer to the way algorithms are able to link words to images, or more precisely, the under representation of some groups, particularly those that are historically marginalized. For example, an educator designing a game on Kahoot has the option of using the feature selection algorithm, which allows you to attach a photograph to the addressed question. At first glance, for the input term love, the Kahoot feature selection algorithms have shown pictures of heterosexual couples only. This can have multiple implications for high school students, for example, and their social identity and personality. or how they perceive themselves within the community they are being part of, especially those of them who identify as being part of a sexual minority. Because of the fact that photographs act as a powerful emotional uh, vehicle, as photographs elicit action and an emotional reaction, and because of the systemic lack of representation depicted within Kahoot's feature selection algorithms, students part of the minority group reminded above could feel peer pressured to act unnaturally or hide their true feelings in front of their peers. I believe that in the case of systemic biases in ESL education, a possible solution could be making ESL teachers aware of the inclusive side of their teaching materials and technology. For example, GSRSs could integrate Braille language to help make their websites more inclusive, thus giving a chance to visually impaired students to play educational games more often and with the other students in the classroom. We have identified three main biases within ESL high school lessons that use GSRSs such as Kahoot or quizzes. These biases are content biases, cultural biases, and systemic biases. While the content biases are much easier to solve in the sense that ESL teachers could carefully read all the questions within a selected ready-to-go game found on the platform's open library, the systemic ones are embedded in the subjective judgment of the game designer and how they choose to associate pictures to meaning, sometimes incorporating personal political views within the game dynamics.